Good evening, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Cold War Radio. The following is an encore presentation of Cold War Radio, episode number 500. What an adventure. Enjoy. All right, technical difficulties right off the bat. That was supposed to be Cold War Radio 18 that apparently wasn't in an MP3 format or something. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cold War Radio live on our home base, WAAR. We are America Radio, your number one source for streaming political and government talk anywhere. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the bunker in my Smith & Wesson studio in the city of Pittsburgh. I'd like to welcome my friend from north of the Arctic Circle, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring Radio Norway to the program. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Hutch, and I would like to extend my warmest congratulations on this fantastic occasion, 500 shows. That is quite a feat, so congratulations, Hutch, and I believe a big thank you also is in order.
Well, I thank you right back, and incidentally, the intro music that you did hear, why don't you explain that to the audience, Mr. Norway?
That was the Telemark Battalion March, which is made for the Telemark Battalion, which is the Norwegian battalion that is serving in Afghanistan.
Outstanding. So that's what that was for. That was a little tribute to Norway, who has taken the show to another level. You know, we now have our our Monday episode of Shaping Our World, which is something that people really enjoy. Let me finish with the intro information. Please follow me on Spreaker, like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio, 2 A's in war. You can catch the show on Roku, Blueberry, YouTube. Cold War Radio is a proud iHeartRadio program. You can catch the Cold War Radio app free in your app store, whether iPhone or Android. Either one. The email is hutch@steelcityresistance.com. The Cold War Radio patron hotline open tonight, 412-567-1460. The chat room is also up. The link is on Spreaker. No, it's not. There's no links on Spreaker. I didn't put any. I mean, there's no links on the website. I didn't have a chance to do anything with that. Darn it. Oh, well, I was a little excited for this program, Norway. There's no show notes tonight. We're doing this freestyle. I'm gonna reference some older show notes. That's gonna be fun. But if you go to SteelCityResistance.com, you can still become a Cold War Radio patron. In the right-hand column, I want to thank you to all of the Cold War patrons out there right now. The mailbox is Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 15226. Still getting my arms around those medical aid kits that Doc sent. Doc, I hope you're feeling better. But we're going to get one of those out. It's going out tomorrow to Bagram Air Force Base in my son's platoon. If you're interested in assisting there, and it's no sweat, I'm going to do it myself anyway. But they want whole bean coffee out there on the fob. So if you send me an email, hutch@steelcityresistance.com, if you're interested in helping with that maneuver. I already I packed up the grinder, the bean grinder, the coffee grinder, and we reached out to Black Rifle Coffee. Haven't heard anything back from them. I'm going to go with the second brand that he asked for. I don't even remember what it is, but there you go. We're gonna talk a little bit. We've got some exciting guests from the history of the show coming on in just a little bit, down at the bottom of the hour. But Norway, there's a lot of things going on today. You sound like you're ice fishing, man. Is everything all right over there?
I just had to pour myself a little coffee. It's it's not late tonight. It's only 1:07 a.m. But still, I figure when you started talking about coffee, I needed to pour a little in my mug here and cozy up, And
that's fair enough. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to reiterate that fact that Norway comes on the program every week at 2 a.m. his own time. That is fantastic, and that's dedication. And I can't thank you enough about that. That's really something else. Now, it messed my groove up here. I was going to play a clip of the intro of the show that we did back in February of 2014, just to show you the difference. We used to have a live producer, and we're going to talk to him later in the program, and I'll actually get into all that when he comes on. But some of the things that we covered in February 18th, as a matter of fact, 2014, the lead number one story on the program was NBC Olympics coverage burying Cold War history. And it went on, they called him Bob Pink Eye Costas, was portraying Russian strongman Vladimir Putin as an amiable and even-handed diplomat, things of that nature. Some of the other things we covered, at least 90 Christians slaughtered by Islamist terrorists in Nigeria. We covered that from the very beginning. Iran seeks new Russia reactor in exchange for oil. Let's see. FBI documents raise additional questions about Saudi and al-Awlaki connections to 9/11 attacks. So, things weren't that much different. Iran says warships headed to close U.S. borders. And then we had a segment that I'll talk about with Mr. J that was a real staple of the show. We don't do it anymore. But it was Today in Cold War History. And then we used whatever random day it was. And he went back and researched some of the Cold War history. It's some of the history on that day, on February 21st. That was the actual day of the broadcast. 1952, the British government under Winston Churchill abolishes identity cards in the UK to set the people free. In 1952, the Bengali language movement protests occur at the University of Dhaka in East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. 1958, the peace symbol commissioned by Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. This is what we were talking about last night, Norway. In protest against the atomic weapons research establishment is designed and completed by Gerald Holtom. So that is the history of the peace sign. I didn't remember that.
Oh, I mean, when you go through, what's come to pass through the years, it is striking how history repeats itself. And how we keep making the same mistakes again and again. And luckily, we got Trump now, and I think that is a huge step in the right direction. But I know you said it a little jokingly last night on Wayne Dupree's show that we're in fact at war with Islam, and people go haywire when someone comes and speaks the truth, but I believe that is the truth as well. In the current form we see Islam today, there's no getting around that. We have to deal with it.
Unfortunately, we are not at war with Islam. The correct way to put that is Islam is at war with us, and we just refuse to admit it. And that's the part that drives me crazy. I was dead serious when I said that last night. And I realized there's something about Donald Trump with me. I have an initial gut reaction to something, and then somehow, almost every time, over the next 12 hours, my opinion settles down a little bit. Like, for instance, I didn't even realize it until today that he never mentioned the word Islam during his speech. And to me, that's got McMaster written all over it.
Absolutely. I concur with you on that. It is troubling, the development we've seen in the last few days. I was absolutely sure that Bannon would never go. I mean, Bannon is, for lack of a better word, the brain, the ideological brain behind the movement, and of course he was a prime target for the Uniparty to get rid of. And I mean, when it's that easy to get rid of a prime target like Bannon, that has me a little bit worried.
Well, I think one of the things that happened there, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to your calls. We're going to open the phone lines, 412-567-1460. Anything you'd like to ask me about the show or ask Norway, it's open subject, open material tonight. We're going to try to have a good time. We're going to reminisce a little bit in a few minutes. But I think what you had there, and I only about 3/4 believed it when I read it, but it was right in front of my face, and it absolutely, in my opinion, happened. You got to a point where you gave President Trump two choices, Bannon or McMaster. And I think McMaster had too many other swamp monsters on his side, and Bannon was out there by himself. And, well, he might not have been by himself. I mean, he had Gorka, but he wasn't in a position of strength. And if you look at Breitbart.com's been sniping at McMaster. They're still doing it. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm saying I said it 3 weeks ago that this isn't going to end well for Bannon, and it didn't. You know, he just...
No, yeah, well... I must say I'm worried. And what beats me is that how on earth could Trump hire a guy like McMaster? I simply can't wrap my head around that one because you said it and I've said it pretty much from day one that this was a really bad move, and we see the result of that now.
And he's not even a general; he's a lieutenant general. You know what I mean? He didn't reach the level of 4 stars. He got banned from command by the United States Army. I know where Tillerson came from. Tillerson came from Condoleezza Rice. I don't know about him half the time. But this is something that I differ in my opinion of Bannon. I don't think he was the brains. I think he was the tactician. He was the guy that dealt with the deep state, and he was the guy that wanted to get out of Afghanistan. And I don't think that was a popular idea within the military establishment. I mean, it's apparent that it wasn't. The other thing is somebody before that speech, which no troop levels were mentioned during that speech, somebody leaked that 4,000 troops were going, and now apparently that's the deal. And I just wonder if that was leaked on, because a lot of times they do this on purpose. They leak something out the back door like that. But was that a real leak that he didn't want to get out? Is somebody going to go to jail for that? Are we going to figure this out?
Yeah, well, that's another thing. I mean, when you see the extent of the leaks and the severity of the leaks, and it has had absolutely no consequence thus far as we know. I think that is a serious problem, and Trump himself prides himself on keeping his card to the chests when he's paying. But it's really hard when he's sharing information in his inner circle, and there are traitors in his inner circle that are willing to leak this information. And I mean, this is a serious bit of intelligence that's leaked out. I mean, nobody should know that 4,000 troops are supposed to land until they land.
I agree 100%. I think this is critical. And if you have this kind of thing going on, just with troop levels, I mean, it seems like everything. It seems like nothing's off the table. It's okay to leak anything, and until somebody has to go to jail. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Somebody absolutely has to go to jail that's committing these crimes, or they're never going to stop.
Absolutely. Sorry. I think it's time for the prosecutors to step up and deal with this and catch these persons. I believe there are several leakers, and that's what makes it so darn difficult to figure out, because it's really hard to use the process of elimination when Trump is forced to have a certain number of people around him discussing these things. It's practically impossible to use the process of elimination to find the leaker, because there are more than one of them. So, but I believe that someone needs to step up to this task, because it's the leaks, they are eroding President Trump's presidency.
They 100% are, and they're eroding, I'm sure, other world leaders' faith in the integrity of their conversations with the president. I mean, if you were the president of Mexico, he almost messed up your chances for re-election. Things like that. I mean, this is a very serious situation. Now, we're going to, if you want anything you want to talk about in the first half hour, if you want to talk about the speech or anything, current events or historical, 412-567-1460. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to start getting into some guests. You can still feel free to call in and ask the guests any question you want. But let's look at the headlines right now, because they become so much part of the bullseye when it comes to these things. At Breitbart, it looks like Rick Santorum is crafting a different Obamacare repeal plan, and he's talking with lawmakers. I mean, he's talking with House and Senate leaders and governors. This guy's not even in politics. It's just amazing that, and they're saying, Matt Boyle and Sean Moran are saying it'll pass through the House and Senate. So how different is that?
Yeah, well, in my personal opinion, and of course I don't feel Obamacare, the curse of Obamacare on my own person directly here in Norway, but to me that is a Gordic nut. You need to take the sword and slice right through it to solve it, and repeal, period.
I agree.
I mean, all this noise with replacing Obamacare, and I mean that is the path of socialism, and that is exactly why people voted for a regime change and voted for Trump. It was to get away from this horrible socialist rule that's been plaguing America for 8 years and destroying much of the country.
Right, and not just in the medical field, but economically as well. Now, Paul Ryan, being the true, this kills me. He's blaming the Senate exclusively for the failure to repeal Obamacare. But I would like you people to remember that the deal that came out of the House was not that good of a deal. I mean, it certainly was not the repeal of Obamacare. It was an amendment to the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps moving in circles, and what baffles me is that the so-called Republican Party, the so-called conservatives in America, I simply don't get how they become so sucked into this socialist way of thinking.
Yep, I don't either. I mean, it was taught to them, and the thing is they won't be affected like everybody else will, because everything that they make, they make an exemption. They give themselves an exemption, so that's a given. So that it's not going to affect them, but they're going to be able to get rich out of it. I mean, how this goes. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce, United States Chamber of Commerce, the insurance industry. You look at the different pharmaceutical industries. Their boards are filled with people that used to be in politics. This is the way they roll, and it's pretty sickening the way it goes. Now, Kelly Ward says that she's ready to welcome the president to Arizona. I heard something disturbing, Norway, earlier on the radio on the way home from work, that the mayor of Phoenix reached out to the president and asked him, please don't come to his city. Have you ever heard of anything like that? I have never heard anything like that in my lifetime of following politics.
But I mean, like we've talked about in the last few Monday shows we've done, Shaping Our World, we will looked at the totalitarian ideology behind the Democratic Party and how it's infiltrating society, and this is pure Alinskyism. Trying to stir up hatred and mistrust against the president, and trying to pin civil unrest on his person. And it's absolutely unforgivable. I mean, when in the history of the United States have you ever seen politicians go about this way to destroy a president? And this, I feel that this is a clear indication that at least the initial Trump policy when he got elected was the right one. Draining the swamp is priority number one, and these crony capitalists in the GOP and the Alinskyist socialists in Democratic Party, they are really, really scared that they'll get their bacon fried and they'll lose out on this nepotistic deal they're into.
No, I agree, and I think when you look at the end result, if you look at what's going on around us, the people trying to tear down history, the end result is no more America. And I can't imagine that these people are that stupid, but apparently they are. And they're being pushed, just like the brown shirts. We talked about this before. Just like the brown shirts, just like the black shirts. These are what Lenin used to call not Lenin. Lenin used to call them useful idiots. And that's exactly what they are. They don't know anything about history. They have no clue that they're living on the best country in the world, with the most opportunity for the most people, and yet they go around and they spew their communist chants, and they destroy. Can you believe that they knocked down or destroyed? They didn't knock it down, but they destroyed the tablet with the text on it of the oldest statue of Christopher Columbus in this country, 225 years old, just a little bit younger than the country itself.
It's
in Baltimore.
It's a bad sign. It's there is the old saying that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And when you look at history, it's been quite violent, and we've been in the last 100 years. We've been through 2 major world wars, and we've seen socialism rise. We've seen National Socialism rise to the detriment of hundreds of thousands of and millions, hundreds of millions of people. And when you see people actively going out into the streets, working to get that shit back, it's absolutely disgusting.
No, it is, and there's no excuse for it. There's no reason for it, and it just when you think about it, it's very disturbing. Like you said, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Cold War Radio with Norway on episode 500. Please share the show on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, wherever. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, Mr. J here from Cold War Radio. Still think the Cold War ended in 1991? Let's take another look. Join Hutch Bailey Jr. and Mr. J Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern for Cold War Radio on We Are America Radio. Cold War Radio, where we discuss current issues and connect the relevant past. Folks, don't settle for mainstream media puff pieces. Cold War Radio, your source for what is really happening.
You are listening to Cold War Radio.
Sometimes if they become truth to these people.
Absolutely, and the crime and all that they're fleeing supposedly over there was there before all this started. And we've documented on this show and Cold War Radio that when these people are coming across the border and they're asked, "Why did you leave? What made you come here?" It's because they're expecting some amnesty. It had nothing to do with the so-called violence that's going on over here. They can drop them off in Rahm Emanuel's backyard, and they're going to find a whole lot more violence over there, I suspect.
Yeah, you're right about that. But Barney Frank, if the president has lost Barney Frank, times are tough. Democrat Barney Frank says Obama lied to the people about Obamacare. So there's some breaking truth coming out of that guy was a dingbat, but apparently something made him mad.
Yeah, he said, rollout was so bad, how could B.O. not have been more engaged? He should have told us so he shouldn't have lied about it.
I mean, that's pretty much what he said, but, this blowhard, never said a word during the rollout.
Don't make me do that. Damn, sucker. Sounds like it's
all right. Welcome back to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen. That was Mr. J. We'll be listening to him in just a few minutes. But on the line now, by the way, don't listen to those times. These are nostalgic clips from back in the day. But on the line right now, the guy that got it all started with me in political talk radio back in 2010. I want to welcome Mr. Ward Miller to the program, the founding co-host of Steel City Resistance, and what got it all started at a pod camp Pittsburgh in downtown Pittsburgh in, I guess it was fall 2010. Welcome, Ward, to the show. Hi, Ward.
Hey, Hutch, how you doing? Congratulations on show number 500, man. This is very exciting for me to be here.
I had to bring you on because, like I said, I wasn't going to do it by myself because, as everybody knows, Ward is from the city as well. That's why Steel City Resistance started out being, I won't say it was a local show, but it was just our way of saying, yeah, we're surrounded, but we don't care. We're going to turn on the microphones anyway. And then it morphed out just into an international total news show. But it was you and I remember we used to tape it. Remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the funny thing is, a lot of the predictions we made ended up coming to fruition. They didn't happen right away. We'd say, well, this is going to happen, and this is what's going on, and then 2 years down the road, it would be like, hey, look, we were right. So that's what's interesting. And I got another prediction for you. I was listening earlier when you guys were talking about Bannon, and what's going to happen is, here's my prediction. Bannon stepped on, and they made it look like a firing. He went back to Breitbart. What he's going to do is he's going to start his own cable news station that's going to be right of Fox News. Because Fox, since Murdoch's kids have taken over, they've become more globalist, and they're more milquetoast than they used to be. So Bannon's going to come in with Breitbart, and this is basically is going to be his rally for Trump. He helps Trump out by coming in and doing all the, dragging Trump further to the right and coming out and saying, this is what's going on and this is why everything's going right. Instead of this stupid crap with the Russians and, what he said about the protesters and all this other stuff, he's going to come out and say, look at the job numbers, look at the stock market, look at all the positives that's actually happening with this president. And you mark my words, that's where it's going. And Bannon made it look like he fell on the sword. I think Bannon stepped to the side to actually bring the train around.
I think that's a good possibility, and he's going to be very effective at it. Norway, what do you think?
Hey Ward, pleasure to talk with you. I hope this is the way it's going. I've seen signals indicating that is the way it's going to go. But I also seen signals that this is a crack in the entire platform. So I'm an optimist, and I there's definitely a market for a channel, because I mean the if you can use an expression like the right wing, the entire right wing field is practically empty. So there is a huge market for anyone who wants to step into that. I mean, look at One American Network. They've made a killing in stepping into that field, and they're growing really rapidly. So if that's what Bannon's got planned, let's support that and wish him all the best of luck. And I think he will succeed big time.
Well, I think that Bannon didn't want to go any further into Afghanistan, like Hutch said, but I think the deal was that we couldn't pull out because we've already seen what happened in Iraq when we just pulled our troops out. It has to be a phased removal, and God knows I don't want our troops in harm's way any longer than they have to be. But if we were to just snatch our troops out of Afghanistan, we'd have the same problem there that we have, currently in Iraq and Syria with ISIS, because Afghanistan has no problem with becoming a terrorist haven.
Well, it already is in many respects, and but I think it's it's true that just pulling the plug is a horrible solution. You need to do a phased withdrawal. But when you look at Afghanistan is really tricky. I mean, in a pretty much socialist Iraq, you had some fractions, and the big mistake they did when they pulled out of Iraq was that they actually decapitated the rather large middle class who had gotten a lot of perks simply by being in the middle class and working in the state bureaucracy. But when you look at Afghanistan, it's just a horrible blanket of tribes and tribal wars, and the geography makes the country really divided geographically as well. So it's a conundrum how to withdraw in a phased manner and do it well.
Now let's slide over into other areas of the Middle East. And one of the things that I am most proud of with Steel City Resistance, and we carried it in to Cold War Radio, was our idea and philosophies concerning Syria. Right at the very beginning, we both denounced any U.S. involvement in the region at all. We fully illustrated the morphing of the what was initially the Free Syrian Army that was immediately raped by the Al-Nusra Front and made to give them all their weapons. And that did not become apparent, or at least they weren't honest about it, McCain and his crew, for years after that. And we said it within the first 3 weeks of it happening, if you'll remember.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when McCain got his picture taken with the terrorists, we announced that within a week. They showed the pictures, and we're like, wait, he's standing there with known terrorists. Why is nobody saying anything about this?
And then you sit there and you watch.
And those known terrorists became ISIS.
And you can watch on Live Leak, you watch these TOW missiles being launched like they're M80s. I mean, they must have such a stockpile of these TOW missiles provided by McCain, no doubt in my mind. These people are military-industrial complex. But when you can shoot a TOW missile at one of those very small Toyota trucks that you could take out with an M16, I mean, you've got too many of them.
That's the definition of overkill.
That's the definition of having a lot of them. If you don't have to save them for tanks and you're fighting the Syrian army that has tanks.
Exactly.
So that was one of the things that, keeps you rolling when you make calls like that. And then you watch 5 and 6 years play out, Norway, and McCain is still talking the same old smack. I mean, it never changes with this guy.
Well, I mean, if you have a modern definition of a traitor, that is McCain. I mean, and it just shows how deep this crony capitalism runs in the GOP when a guy like that is still in any sort of power.
Mark my words, they're gonna. By the time this is all said and done, they're going to blame his actions on the cancer. They're going to say that honestly, they're going to say that the vote for the health care, that was all because of his cancer. He was out of his mind. I think that, and I actually posted this. I don't remember if I did it on Steel City Resistance or where I did it at, but I think that all the politicians in the House and the Senate, every one of them should be forced to use the VA for their health care. They should have to go back to their districts and use the VA for their health care. And as soon as you do that, the VA gets fixed.
Yeah, the VA has potential. I mean, it's not like there's a lack of funding there. And the other thing, and I know this from firsthand experience, when you live in a medical town like Pittsburgh, The people, the specialists that work at the VA come from the real hospitals. I mean, they come from Presby and UPMC and the other hospitals because they've worked on me before, and I know that that's not a VA employee. That guy's got UPMC written all over his jacket.
Sure, but my point is, I think that the VA does need help.
It does,
and the fact that these politicians that have given themselves a pass on Obamacare, that get free health care, and they don't have to play by the same rules. Number one, that's unconstitutional. They have to follow they can't. It's illegal for them to pass a law that doesn't apply to them, and that's exactly what they did with Obamacare. Now, the fact that the Dems are the ones that passed it, it doesn't matter. It's still in effect, and it's still applying to both sides. So neither one of them is saying, oh, wait a second, I'm going to give up my health care. And the other thing is, too, the way that they're getting around it is all of their interns and whatnot are basically considered, what is it? It's like independent contractors. So they don't have to pay for their insurance. It's the biggest scam ever. None of the politicians, none of the congressmen, none of the senators, none of all of their staff are independent contractors, and just so that the politicians don't have to pay for their health care.
That's absolutely right. And I mean, not only that, but you have ridiculous pensions that are the same way. The pension systems in Washington, if you took that away, the bottom line, the main solution to the whole thing, we all know what it is. The bottom line is term limits. And until you get term limits, the rest of this stuff, we can talk about it all day long, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot. And that's unfortunate, but it's the way it is. They're never going to vote themselves term limits. I mean, that's just not going to happen, unfortunately.
No. I mean, why would? I mean, you consider Nancy Pelosi's been in for what, 40 years?
At least.
And what I think is really funny is, for 40 years she's walked through the House, through the House and through the Senate and seen the statues, and now all of a sudden they're grotesque and need to be removed. Now, how do you walk past them for 40 years, and all of a sudden these things are abhorrent to you, and you have to get rid of them immediately?
And Wayne Dupree has a good explanation for it. He said what they're doing is they're trying to get rid of the evidence. If you notice, every statue they're knocking down is of a Democrat.
Yeah. Well, I want to know when they're going to get rid of the one of Byrd.
Right. I'd like to see them knock down the real monument to slavery, knock down the IRS building.
Well, that and they need to get rid of the one of the rapists too that's in Arkansas.
Yeah, how about that? Ward, can you stick around for a little bit?
Sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Cold War Radio with Hutch Bailey Jr., Ward Miller, and Norway. Don't go anywhere. We've got some exciting things coming up, and we'll be right back.
Hi, Mr. J here from Cold War Radio. Still think the Cold War ended in 1991? Let's take another look. Join Hutch Bailey Jr. and Mr. J Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern for Cold War Radio on We Are America Radio. Cold War Radio, where we discuss current issues and connect the relevant past. Folks, don't settle for mainstream media puff pieces. Cold War Radio, your source for what is really happening.
Cold War Radio. And welcome back to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen, on We Are America Radio, your number one source for streaming political and government talk anywhere. The gentleman that you heard in the last couple promos and in the Barney Frank rant is Mr. J from the Southern Command in Orlando, Florida. I haven't talked to you for a while. You did 320 episodes of Cold War Radio, starting the program out with Cold War Radio number 1. Mr. J, good evening.
Good evening, Hutch Bailey Jr. High upon an astral plane, the state-of-the-art Southern Command studio and newsroom is armed and activated. How the hell have you been, my friend?
Not bad, not bad. Good to hear your voice. We have Ward Miller on the line and Radio Norway. This is Mr. J, folks.
Awesome. It's great, and congratulations on all the efforts of all the people involved in Cold War Radio and Steel City Resistance. 500 episodes, that's a huge achievement, and I was glad to be a part of it.
And I was glad you were, too.
I wish I had more time.
I'll tell you, 320 episodes, that's a chunk of them. And I couldn't do the show without you.
Absolutely. It's a labor of love, as we both know, and man, it's a huge accomplishment. Congratulations, Hutch and Ward. You guys are on the front lines, as I try to be sometimes, but man, great accomplishment.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It means a lot. Now, when we were doing the program, we came on to another network, another station, I guess, and we're going to talk to John Grant in a little bit. But we had a live producer, and this was the first time either one of us had ever done live radio before, and it's a little bit more nerve-wracking. There's no room for rewinds or editing tape or anything like that. You're on, and it's either working and you're not. And I wanted to share something with you, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. J and I experienced. I want to see if I can find it here. I should be able to in short order. But we had an interview lined up. And one of the things about interviews that we learned from this experience, I'm sitting here looking at a 3-page or 2-page list of questions that Mr. J and I had for Ambassador John Bolton. I don't know if you remember that. I guess I do know you remember that. You have to remember that.
I absolutely do.
We had an interview, ladies and gentlemen, lined up with Ambassador John Bolton, and it was so smooth that his secretary gave me his office phone number, and I was to call his phone number up, and we had 15 minutes, I think, and we had all these different questions that we were going to ask the ambassador, and none of the equipment would work. We couldn't get it to record, and it was live radio. It wasn't like we couldn't even record it. It would not, for some reason. I had to call Ambassador Bolton, tell him who I was, say thank you very much, but we're not going to be able to interview you. I'm sorry. And that was
I remember that. That was painful, but he was cool about it, if I remember correctly.
He was. He was very cool about it, but that's one of those things that happens, and it's like one thing about live radio, you got to have a plan B and a plan C.
Absolutely. And that was one of those points that we needed both of those backup plans, but we pulled it through. It was unfortunate we didn't get that interview going, but we made it work.
Yeah, we did. We talked about, I forget what we talked about. We had a good show, but it was just, it had been so advertised throughout social media, and I really wanted that interview. I mean, that was one of the most important ones, and I couldn't bring myself to call him back right away, and now I don't even know if his contact information's the same.
Yeah, that was something, but we made it work, and that guy, he still is a stalwart of what the class of people we want to talk to, and he was good enough to say, hey, just call me back again when you got everything working again, and we'll do another interview.
Norway, Ward, anybody else? It's open line tonight. Anything you want to talk about?
Or you just want me to to start talking about it?
Yeah, say something to Mr. J. You know Mr. J.
Oh, yeah. We did a couple Steel City Resistance together. I think it was it wasn't a 500 show, but I think it was some sort of an anniversary show that I popped into, and in fact, we were talking earlier about the troubles that we had with technology back in Steel City Resistance. We were talking about it during the break. We had an interview coming up, and Hutch and I couldn't be on the feed at the same time with our interview. So Hutch dropped off. I'm interviewing the guy, and his name was Josh Wander. He was running for mayor of Pittsburgh, and I had to interview him, and Hutch had all the questions.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck with them, and I'm just making crap up as I go along. Just hey, so what do you think about the water situation? I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I had this interview with him for like 15 minutes, and then finally, after about 15 minutes, it's like, okay, take it easy, have a good one. We're going to go to commercial, and then it's like, come on, Hutch, get back. God's sake, I can't do this by myself.
Yeah, it does it gets a little tricky sometimes. That guy had a good backstory too. He got about 12 votes, but he right at the end of his campaign, before the election even. I mean, he gets on an episode of Nat Geo. So he's a Jewish prepper that's running for mayor as a Republican in a city that's about 50,000 to 1 Democrat. And I mean, he's on TV now, and then he moves to Israel, and he hasn't been back. He moves to Israel.
He's the guy that came up with the bandage that closes wounds, and I think we did a little episode on that, and I think we were helpful in his quest to get that.
He had a GoFundMe
to people.
He had a GoFundMe with some. He was worked, I guess, like a paramedic, like a first aid person when attacks were happening in Israel. And
he was a pilot over there too.
Yeah, he was in the IDF. Yeah, he was, and we confirmed it, if you remember.
Yeah,
I mean, this guy talked to me, and he says he's an IDF guy, and I'm like, well, hold on. And believe it or not, I contacted the IDF, and they told me yes, he was in fact an officer in the IDF, and it was on after that. We talked to him a few times.
Awesome,
ladies and gentlemen. Let me bring onto the program another co-host and someone who's been around radio and around this show for a long time. Let's welcome Stacy Rush from Atlanta, Georgia. Good evening, Stacy.
Good evening, Hutch Bailey Jr. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, good. I'm on my Bluetooth speaker, so I'll take it off if I need to. I had to call because I heard Mr. J on the line, so I couldn't let that opportunity pass by without calling in to say hello to one of the oldies but the goodies. No offense there with the oldie content.
Well, hello, Stacy. It's always good to hear your voice, and I have no ill feelings towards anybody involved in this group. I love y'all. I really do mean that. I do have fun sometimes, and it's probably alcohol related. Here's the call sign from Cold War Radio. Ready, set, go.
All right. Well, all the love's back.
I do have my fun, but I do love you guys, and I do miss hanging out with you. And it's, my problem is I'm just so damn busy right now. I'm swamped.
Well, that's a good thing.
So much work.
That's a good thing. You can't.
Hey, that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, so Stacy,
I wanted to tell you heartfeltly that I'm so proud of you for 500 episodes. That's quite a feat. I mean, that is no small thing at all. And I heard some of the discussions y'all were talking about with all the mishaps with live radio, and you really have been such a trooper. And for people who are new to the show or haven't told some friends about it, I tuned into Hutch for years because he provides information that you're not going to hear in the mainstream media. We talk about it a lot, that these 6 companies control the narrative. They all talk about the same stories, and I always tune in to Cold War Radio because You do an excellent, excellent job at covering things that are vitally important and not being covered by what we call our mainstream media that really has gone by the wayside. So I really do appreciate everything you do, and congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, Stacy, and I appreciate that. And that is the goal. I mean, that's been the goal from the beginning. Is that, for instance, today you look at all the stories in the media, but what you don't see is that President Trump's administration is opening diplomatic channels with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. And if he does that, if he's able to sit down at a table with Kim Jong-un, whether or not China, South Korea, Japan, and Russia are at the table or not, he'll be the first one to ever do that. And it probably won't get covered in the media. But that's a crime not to cover something like that. And that's what motivates us to get out here and do this. So I appreciate that you noticed that. I'm going to have to clear some of these lines up a little bit. So, Mr. J and Ward, I appreciate you guys coming on the program. Who knows what's going to happen in the future?
Absolutely. Hey, anytime, Hutch.
Ward, how can people reach out to you on social media? Or are you doing anything?
Currently, I don't have any shows going on, but I'm still controlling the Facebook page for Steel City Resistance, and I'm still on Twitter at Wardy22. Feel free to hit me up, whatever. Again, congratulations on your number 500, Hutch, and I'm going to bail. You guys take it easy. All
right. Thank you, Ward, for coming on. Always appreciated. The original founding co-host of Steel City Resistance, getting it all started in 2010. God bless Ward. Mr. J, are you anywhere you can be reached on social media or anything going on?
Absolutely. You can find me at MRJA USA on Twitter. You can find me at ChrisIvan.334 on Facebook. And right now, my big thing is barbecue, and I am big on barbecue, so you can watch me do barbecue if you want. But I appreciate all the great things that Cold War Radio has done. Congratulations, Hutch, on the 500th episode. And it was great to hear from you again. It was great to hear from Stacy and Wardy. And, hey, if you ever need somebody to help out, just give me a ring.
All right, will do. And thank you so much once again for coming on.
Absolutely.
All right, so Norway and Stacy, we're getting ready to roll into the second hour. We've got some other special guests coming up. I want to play what it sounded like back. This is Cold War Radio number 4, and it is unfortunately you guys aren't going to be able to hear it, but just bear with me for like two minutes. I just want the audience to hear what it sounded like back at the beginning. We'll be right back.
24/7 talk and new voices. We are the 405radio.com from Los Angeles. More right radio from the left coast is straight ahead. Monday, 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern. It's Cold War Radio with Pittsburgh's own Hutch Bailey Jr. and Central Florida's finest, Mr. J. So good evening, Hutch.
John Grant, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cold War Radio on the 405radio.com. My name is Hutch Jr., currently at DEFCON 3 Inside the Wire in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let me activate the Southern Command in Orlando and welcome Mr. J to the Alliance.
Thank
Thanks, Hutch. Southern Command is armed and activated.
Call-in number 877-297-8022. If you want to call in this evening, what we're going to do is you've been totally bombarded and saturated.
Doing great.
Okay, welcome back to Cold War Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a clip from the very early days of the program, and we are honored to be joined this evening by a guy that made that possible out in Los Angeles. You heard him at the beginning of the intro right there, introducing the show. It's where we started, from Los Angeles and the 405 Media Company. At the time, it was the 405 Radio. Let's welcome Mr. John Grant from Los Angeles. Good evening, sir. Good evening, John. Nope, I don't know if he's on mute or what happened. We'll stick with it for a little bit. But this happens in live radio, ladies and gentlemen. You got to deal with it. We will get right back to him in just a minute. But Stacy, you've been on several different shows and things like that. We've been to different events. What are some of your feelings? What were some of your high points and maybe low points?
You know, I feel like everything has been a high point. I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's been such a great ride and such a good experience getting to know all the people that I've gotten to know through this. Yourself, you know, Chris, Norway, Wayne, it's just the people have been fabulous to be around. But I would say highlight was probably my first CPAC. It was such an interesting experience, and it was so new to be involved and meet Wayne for the first time face to face. We had done several shows together, but we had never met face to face, and it took us 3 days to finally get together. But just to show you what kind of guy he is, you know, we had been doing something early on radio, and you know, at that particular event, he was being interviewed by David Webb from the David Webb Show, and he had me come on with him, and he didn't have to do that, you know. So he has introduced me to some fabulous people, Hutch Bailey Jr. being top among them, and so I would say that just the opportunities I've been afforded to interview some of the top politicians, for me, it's like my Super Bowl, it's like my Hollywood, so I feel like the entire thing has been a highlight. Lowlights have been some of the infighting, I think, that goes on, and I don't mean necessarily with the group here, but I do mean in the movement itself. One thing that has bothered me tremendously with it is I see a lot of really good, talented people who get involved in politics because they really care about the country and they really care about the conservative movement, and then they get a taste of fame, a little bit of fame, you know, and it seems like they're less interested in helping others within the movement to kind of change our country for the better and really get conservative out there into the mainstream, because we're dealing with such a liberal biased media, and they seem to be more concerned about protecting themselves and protecting the little bit of success that they've managed to cull together. So I would say that's probably a low light as far as the whole situation is concerned, but everything else has been nothing but a highlight, and I include, you know, you, and being able to do several different types of shows with you and different networks with you has been just a tremendous experience. You're a real pro at this, and I've learned quite a lot.
Well, thank you very much. In Norway, I got to tell you, you're just at the beginning. Although you did have a career in professional broadcasting in Norway, but this really has been a long ride, and it does have its ups and downs. And Stacy's right; people get famous, and sometimes they get a little silly. But I try not to burn bridges. That's been my policy, and it's worked out pretty well for me. I think we're good now. Let's try the shot out back to Los Angeles and welcome Mr. John Grant to the program from the 405 Media. Good evening, John.
Yeah, Hutch. Mr. Big Time Radio Guy hit the mute button. What in the wide world of sports happened there? I don't know. But I'm here. All right. That's all that matters.
And I thank you for coming on, because you're another one that really loves the country and the direction that it's going. And you also had a professional start in the radio world dating back to the 1970s. I learned a lot from you. And actually, Cold War Radio on episode 500 tonight broadcast episode number 1 out of your studios, and we certainly remember our roots and appreciate that.
Yeah, that was the clip that I think you alluded to at the top of the show. I didn't hear what it was. I'm sure it was top-notch professional broadcast radio, right?
Oh, it was good. It was good. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we used to thank goodness for Skype. I mean, we've used some other call systems, and when Skype's working, there's nothing better than it. It went there was a problem there for a while. I don't know if you had the problem, but we had problems with calls. And we had to go to other areas that were a lot more expensive. So glad to have Skype working out again. Anything? I know you do a weekly show, Gang of 405, and you still run a bunch of programs. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about your station to the audience tonight?
Well, we actually we put the Gang of 405 on hiatus. I just ran out of fresh things to do, and I guess maybe just a lot of professional frustration, and I don't know, just kind of getting to the point where I figured it was kind of near the end of its run. I may bring it back again, I don't know, but for right now, props to Scott Jones, Tammy Jackson. They all still have their own shows here. Tammy's is tonight, Scott's is Monday morning. I just decided, instead of getting up earlier on Saturday than I do for my day job the other 5 days of the week, we're just going to sort of put it on the back burner for now. And that's kind of where it is. Thinking of what the next big thing is, obviously. I don't know what your experience is with the people that, you had some ups and downs with, but a lot of guys cut back after the first of the year, after the election. They stopped doing political podcasts, either because I think they may have been frustrated that, Trump wasn't the guy that they wanted elected, and a lot of the things they felt that they were talking about weren't reflected in the outcome of the election, and they sort of threw up their hands and said, well, that's it, there's nothing else I can do here. A couple of the guys felt that way. I think the other ones just wanted to take a break, and I would probably put myself in that second category.
Well, I know I've wanted to take a break before, that's for sure. I never I don't know what it would have been like. I can't see myself stopping because a Jeb Bush gets elected or something like that, but I certainly agree with what you said. I experienced it. We all did. I mean, I don't know about Norway so much, but I know Stacy and I absolutely watched for use of a better word, watched the swamp drain. I mean, it was all of a sudden where 25 different hosts were, there was 2. And I mean, that happened right now, Stacy, if you remember.
Yeah, I do. And I can relate to where John is, too, because that's, I had to, for personal reasons and for my day job reasons, take a break from it. And sometimes you need it. I find that I enjoy it more now, coming on with you on Thursdays and you and Wayne on Mondays, because I did take that break, and it doesn't consume my life as much as it did. I mean, I felt like I was politics 24/7, and when you, especially in the place that we're at now, where we've got the Senate, the House, and the presidency, and we still can't get anything done, I can absolutely understand why people, like John is alluding to, want to take a break, because, Lord, it's enough to make you go insane. When you're in it every day, all day long.
Tell me about it. Norway, you take extraordinary steps to be on the program on Mondays. And I know that not just on Mondays, but I know from looking at the chat rooms that you listen to the program, and you listen to the program after mine that's on at 9 o'clock. And that's 3 and 4 in the morning, your time. How do you do it?
Yeah, well, I've always been the kind that I don't need very much sleep, so I'm a little trumped that way. But it's also important for me to feel good, to actually see that things are happening, because you guys are doing a fantastic job in illuminating not only America but the world. I mean, anyone can tune into these shows and get actual information based on facts, and that is sorely lacking in American mainstream media, at least, and when you look at Norwegian mainstream media, I mean, it's absolutely sterile in the terms of having any oppositional views to what they're presenting. I mean, it is a completely totalitarian deal. We don't have any conservative news outlets in Norway. So I feel I got the finger on the pulse, and I've been in politics in a Norwegian state assembly. We have Norway is divided into 19 sort of counties or mini states, if you want. So I was elected. I was the youngest elected actually to my county parliament there, and I've always been a political animal. So, but you know, when everything you gets fed with 24/7 is propaganda, is leftist propaganda, you get a sensational craving to find like-minded people, and I found that in you, in Stacy, in Jack, in Wayne. I mean, I really enjoy listening to your shows, guys.
Well, one more thing. What you were in professional radio and had some controversy. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not. I'll leave it open to you. I know it's interesting radio, but there might be you might not want to talk about it. But I'm going to give you the opportunity to.
Oh yeah, well I did. That's actually how I came on your show, Hutch, because I told you my story and you said wow, and you wanted to use me. I did. That was actually after I quit and went on to study at the university. I was asked by my old editor to make a radio essay on Salman Rushdie's Satanic Verses. So we made a 4-part series there, talking about the Quran, the Hadith, the Sirah, the entire ideology behind it, and at that time we also had the Norwegian editor of Salman Rushdie's book. They tried to assassinate him. They shot him, I think it was 4 times or so, but it was unsuccessful. But it was pretty heated, and after. But I said I want to do this anonymous because I knew the risks, and my old editor, that SOB, he leaked my information anyway, and it led to mainstream media getting on to me, publishing my name, and I got some really threatening phone calls in the middle of the night, and was warned off by a defected embassy personnel that I should be careful with what I did. So that is the main reason why I'm working under a pseudonym now.
Oh, there you go. It's a real situation. Now, John, out in L.A., I see that your station is alive and well and thriving. I even think one of my local podcast buddies, I think the Wrestling Mayhem show is still running on the 405 media. What do you have going on in your lineup?
Mike Sorgatron, he's got 2 shows here. He's got a tech show, which we run, and he's also got the wrestling show. So we mix it up a little bit here. I was just listening to Norway there, trying to think of something comparable to my career in radio in terms of controversy. And everything involves women, so I can't match up with what he's been through. It was chicks.
Now, interesting enough, I
wanted to mention something else too.
Certainly,
we produced a lot of shows live here in the beginning, and we obviously don't do that anymore. We use a lot of shows we're getting from other people. Your show was sort of semi-produced. In other words, you were running it, but I had to do a lot of stuff hands-on here. I don't have to do that anymore, so I will say to you and your audience and your co-hosts, you want to start streaming it again here, we can do that, because I've got the means to do that automatically, whereas I didn't in the past. The other thing here, the observation I want to make is, I think, going back to what I said before, there was a huge crack up after the Trump nomination and election, and I remember conferences that I went to before the primaries and the election, and after, and they were like night and day. The attendance was down, I think, because people either didn't feel energized to go to these things. There tended to be either a lot of never Trumps or a lot of Trumps there, and the whole thing just sort of fractured and got split in two. And I think that may have an explanation to some extent as to why people kind of took a step away from podcasting. Not me again, but if I can just sort of read the tea leaves there and kind of make a guess as to what happened there. I did just sort of sense a big crack up at that point, and I think we're still in that territory.
Now, I have to say, statistically, my audience has exploded since then, and one of the things.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you stuck around, you were rewarded for that. So, bully for you, absolutely, yeah.
And I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean to try to pat myself on the back.
Sure, you did that.
Because I wanted to add this next part to it. Is there were several times, and I'm going to do it again. I'm starting to do it right now, where I don't want not groupies. I don't want Trump worshipers in the audience. I mean, I don't care if they're in the audience, but that's not who I'm talking to. When he screws up, I say it. And a couple times I've had people, and this is no lie, that used to call me up every night, or every other night, and I said something or they didn't like, and I haven't heard from them again. So some people come on real strong and then they flame out, or you say one thing that they don't agree with, and they go, well, my audience knows that's not me. I'm coming out with what I feel. I feel, for instance, with his speech last night, I thought that I went in knowing I was going to hate it because I want out of Afghanistan. That's just my opinion. I don't see how anybody can show me what it looks like to win there. But then by the same token, I don't want all the people that sacrificed their lives and their limbs there to just have it given away, and it's like Hamburger Hill in Vietnam, to where we fight and die and then we leave the next day, and absolutely got nothing done. So I'm two-sided on that. But I'm nervous, and I'll say it. And that's not going to go well with a lot of people. But you're right. The people that did stick around, there's still a lot of shows out there, but nothing like before the primary.
Well, I think a lot of them were sort of aiming toward a Trump defeat, maybe even a Trump loss to Hillary. And I think they were just so geared in terms of their talk and their ideology for that to happen, that when it didn't happen, there was just no place for them to go from there. And you see it on the national level, too. A lot of columnists, for lack of a better term, cracked up. And I'm talking about, guys like Brett Stevens, Jeremy Sykes,
Bill Kristol,
Steve Hayes.
Exactly. Where do those guys go from there?
I know.
They bet everything on Trump getting his ass handed to him in November, and it didn't happen. Well, what's your credibility as a pundit after that?
Right.
So I'm not saying that, you've got to play both sides against each other in order to do this, but you've got to at least allow for the eventuality or the situation that, as much as you didn't think Trump was a real conservative and you thought Rubio should have been in there, or Cruz, or, Carly freaking Fiorina, you had to just, as a pundit, you had to at least create an avenue where if that didn't happen, then you have some semblance of credibility left. A lot of these guys didn't do it. Some of them quit doing their podcasts. Some of them went to write for the New York Times or something. And I think the ones that stuck around like you kind of benefited from that. And, life goes on.
Yeah, and I heard Pat Buchanan make an analogy to Barry Goldwater. He said that there were a lot of people that lined up the exact same way as Never Trumpers did against Goldwater. And as soon as that election was over, even though Goldwater lost, all those people faded into obscurity. And he was talking about people like Mitt Romney's father and a whole bunch of other people that people my age never even heard of because of that. That hasn't happened this time. But what you have seen, and you're more in tuned on the professional side than I am, but Fox News has to be tanking right now. They made a decision that they were going to, go all milquetoast, like you said. And I have to say, one of the ways that I took a break, I haven't watched mainstream media news in a month and a half. I used to watch it religiously. I don't even watch it anymore. It's not even worth it, even on Fox, especially on Fox. They got Carl Rove.
Yeah, I don't watch cable because it tends to be a bunch of pundits telling me things that I already know. And, when I see them tweet their little clips or highlights, that's what it is, so I don't turn it on. I mean, if I'm in somebody's house and, it's a 90-year-old couple, they're watching Fox News, but that's about it. The other thing that I wanted to mention was, as far as the Never Trumps are concerned, I just, I don't know. It wasn't like in the past where you could have some, I think, decent arguments between the Cruz people and the Rubio people. I mean, this is just such a schism right now. I'm not sure what could happen except for, Trump to completely crush them or for them to completely crush Trump at this point. I just don't see that it could be. It's got to be one or the other.
It does have to be one or the other, and that's concerning right now with Bannon leaving. And I hope that Ward's prediction is correct, that he starts his own, broadcast company that's right as Fox, because, you do what I'm looking at right now from the outside looking in is that it is. I mean, the people in the establishment, Republicans in the establishment, the Never Trumpers, they're essentially throwing their lot behind a uniparty. I mean, that's essentially what we have with them is one party there. And I at this point in time, with the people that you see that Trump has insulated himself with, I wonder if he's if they're not going to crush him. And I think this is kind of a pivotal moment right now, because I do think that they're feeling very emboldened on this whole Charlottesville thing has given them a whole new lease on life. And when I hear people like McCain and Graham and such praising the speech that he gave about Afghanistan, and you hear pundits on the left praising it too, I start to get concerned that it might be the establishment as a whole, left, right, and Never Trumpers that are going to crush Trump. And I hope I'm wrong about that completely, because for me, it's not about the man; it's about reestablishing America first. And we desperately need that. And I don't like the way that the forces seem to be aligned against him at the moment.
Norway.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Stacey. I think she's again on the button, and I'm apprehensive with the situation we have now. I would have liked to see Trump surround himself with more loyalists from the movement than he has at the moment, because I mean, the man is a giant, no question about it. He's a workaholic. He's intelligent. He's got things going for him. But I mean, he is leading the country, and he's leading the most powerful country on the face of the planet. And I mean, with the incessant attacks from left, from right, from center, from media, on and on and on, 24/7. It's going to take its toll on him, and he could really use a big, solid buffer around him to take some of these blows that I feel is directed directly at him now, and he has to deal with directly, because he has a big job. It's a huge task leading America. Aside from all that noise that is directed at him now, so I agree with Stacey. I think we're in a pivotal moment in his presidency. Actually,
it's a shame that so many people are arrayed against him, and for what? When you look at the basic things that he wants to do, and I understand what it is. It's trillions of dollars is what it is.
Exactly. Follow the money.
And that's the part that's almost insurmountable. Now, there is a way to do this, and it's a nuclear option. I mean, and I would preface it with a meeting with maybe 10 or maybe even 20 of the top senatorial and House leadership Republicans, and I would warn them that I was getting ready to do this, because Donald Trump right now has the ability to nuke the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. All he has to do is get on primetime television and call these people out and say, I gave him a chance. I'd give him a chance first in the meeting. I would also consult with military leaders before I did it, and possibly even the Justice Department. But if he came on national media, he could even do it on Twitter. However he wanted to do it, if he said, look, you know what? If you guys don't get out there and support me in 24 hours, I'm going to quit the Republican Party, and I'm going to ask everybody that voted for me to quit the Republican Party too. And that's 70 million people. What are you going to do with that? And I don't know if that's feasible. I don't, but he's got to be getting frustrated.
Oh, my God. I think you could tell from that presser. I'm going to throw one last thing in here, Hutch, and then I'll wish you the best rest of your evening in 500th episode. But I think the Arizona rally, and if Dr. Kelly Ward wins Arizona with his backing, I think that's all the warning that he might need to give at this point in time. Now, if things keep ratcheting up, maybe a lot more of that. But if he's able to use his bully pulpit to destroy Flake in this election, where he's got Mitch McConnell who's coming out and supporting Flake, Flake who's attacking him and not supporting his agenda. And I think that if he's able to use his bully pulpit to support Kelly Ward and she wins and wins big, I think message sent without having to come out and destroy the Republican Party. But maybe
you know
not.
When the Arizona primary is? How soon is that? Because I understand that Flake's numbers are awful right now, and I just
they are, John. They're like, I don't know when it is, and I'll look that up and put it in the chat room, or somebody in the chat room probably already has. But I think she's coming up. I think it's just the regular 2018 election. I don't think it's a special election. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's just the 2018 November Senate election. And she ran against John McCain first, gave him a pretty decent run for his money, but then Flake comes out with his book, starts criticizing Trump left and right, and he's down in the teens. As far as his popularity is concerned, you get Trump to back her, and I think, this could be a nice win for him without having to go to war with them. But Hutch, to your point, I think if this keeps on the way it's going, something's got to happen, because the Republican Party is already destroyed. If we can't support a president who wants to put the American people first, who wants to increase economic prosperity in America, who wants to increase energy independence in America, and our Republican Party can't get behind that agenda, who wants to destroy ISIS, who loves our military and wants to fix the BA. You look at what Ben Carson is doing at HUD already, reaching out to the African American community like no other president has in recent history. And our Republican Party can't get behind this guy and support him because they don't like the way he tweets or the way he communicates. If they don't start getting the message, which they didn't, because he pulled them over, a lot of them over the finish line, because a lot of us believed, we've got a Republican presidency. You'll start seeing the wall being built. You'll start seeing repeal and replace of Obamacare. And what do we get? Same old, same old. So if Arizona isn't enough to change things, or if things continue to get ratcheted up, I would do something drastic, because this isn't the Republican Party anymore if they can't get behind those issues. Tax reform, for God's sake. They can't get that done. I mean, who are we as a party?
And I call them the stupid party. Mitch McConnell, John Cornyn, and a bunch of the rest of them are going full on against Kelly Ward and for Flake. They're putting out some attack ads real soon about this, and it's just, how stupid are you? Can't you read the tea leaves? Stacey, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. How can people get in touch with you on social media?
You guys can reach me easiest on Twitter at DiscoveringMe40, and I'm the Right Rush on Gab. Thank you, Hutch. Congratulations on your 500th episode. It has been a pleasure, and I look forward to 500 more.
I do, too. Thank you, Stacey. Good night.
Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, Stacey Rush, our Thursday night co-host on Cold War Radio. We're on the line with co-host Radio Norway, and John Grant from the 405 Media. Got about another quarter of the show to go. I had a couple guests that are not online on Skype, but that's okay. Again, I didn't really get your what's going on. We talked about the Wrestling Mayhem show. Incidentally, John, Mike Sorg has figured it out. He just recently occupied a physical studio in the neighborhood of Beachview in Pittsburgh, right on a train line.
I seem to remember him saying something about moving into a real studio. So he's got an actual network. I don't know if he does politics shows. My sense is he doesn't.
No.
Maybe that's the thing is to get off the politics merry-go-round and try some other stuff. I've tried to mix it up a little bit. And again, my sense is after the election, people just sort of needed to take a break a little bit and talk about some other stuff. One of my more popular shows that I produced while I was still producing shows was about gamers. And those guys just loved that show. And they had a huge audience, and they had great guests. And as I said, unfortunately, I got to a point where I just couldn't personally produce all these shows anymore. And that was one of the best, and it wasn't politics, although from time to time, because of Gamergate, which I know very little about, it did overlap with politics. So, that's kind of one of those things where you kind of go out of the box, and sometimes it pays off for you. And unfortunately, we don't do the show anymore, but I know Mike Sorg has a tech show, and I'm sure if he hasn't thought about it, he's got a gaming show.
Yeah, he's big in the local social media scene. He does a lot of different projects. He's also a cameraman, I believe, for some sports entities. But he's but my whole thing was that it was really good for me to see him get a physical studio. I mean, he's making it happen. I think that's good, as you are too. But John, I want to thank you for coming on again. Cold War Radio started in Los Angeles, and I would be remiss if I didn't give you a hat tip for that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and shoot me an email. We'd love to stream the show again. We've got a lot of State of Flux people coming and going, so we can find a regular slot every night or whatever and put it on again and just pick up the stream.
All right, I will definitely do that. I don't know if I can do that from Spreaker, but I'm sure you do. So I will.
We can do it from Spreaker. We do Spreaker. We got a lot of Spreaker shows that we pick up. So just say the word.
Okay, you got it. We'll talk to you after the program. And ladies and gentlemen, look forward to hearing the shows on the 405 Media. Thanks, John.
You bet.
All right, let's. What did I do? I didn't do too good there. That's okay. We're gonna fix that in a minute. I hung up on everybody, buddy. That's what I did, but that's okay. We will get right back to it here in just a second. You're listening to Cold War Radio on We Are America Radio, and as soon as I scroll down here, we will bring Norway back on to the program. That won't take long. And I have another guest for you lined up that I also hung up on, and I will get him on here without you even noticing that we hung up on everybody. So, Norway, that was a good segment. I tried to get Wayne Dupree on, but Wayne is not available, so he must be doing something with the family or something of that nature. But let's welcome Jack, Steel City Resistance current co-host from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Good evening, Jack.
Hey, Hutch. Congratulations, 500 episodes. I've been in the chat room, and you've got such a wonderful group of folks that follow you in this chat room. That's how I got here via RSBN, the Wayne Dupree Show, following the Trump rallies, and I finally made my way here, and it just feels like home. The material that you present, I mean, there is a thirst for knowledge out there in the country, and you are delivering it, my friend. And I don't know how you do it 7 days a week, but my hat's off to you, and I'm just happy I can contribute on Sundays on Steel City Resistance.
And that's a point that needs to be made in Norway as well. Norway coming in here to co-host the entire program this evening. We thank you for that. And also Stacy on Thursdays. And what Jack's talking about is we start out the week on Mondays with Cold War Radio Shaping Our World at 8 p.m. And then at 9 p.m. from Monday to Saturday, I'm on the Wayne Dupree Show as a co-host. And on Fridays and Saturdays, we do 2 hours. And then we wrap up the week on Sundays with Steel City Resistance. I got to tell you guys, I got to curtail that a little bit. It's wearing me out here. Wayne gave me off tonight, so after this segment of the show, I'm turning the microphone off for a little bit. Hopefully, we'll get to see the rally. I don't even know if Wayne's going to have a show tonight. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys know.
I'm telling you, it was so great to hear from the past hosts and the producer in Los Angeles, and I'm listening to that, and I heard that clip you played, and I'm like, this year coming up is so important for the country, and that's all. We're all constitutional republic loving Americans here. We don't agree on everything, but we do love the country, and we think it's being taken away from us. This would be the perfect time for that 405 deal to be ramped up, because there is a thirst for knowledge out in California, because they are trying to turn their state around. They've got Omar Navarro trying to take out Maxine Waters. That's right in that listening area, isn't it?
It is absolutely, and John does a lot of work. I guess I haven't really paid that close attention lately. This was back in 2014 that we were on the 405, and we moved to several other networks in between that I don't have contact with anymore, so I couldn't get them in. FTR Radio and Constitutional Patriot Radio ended up being a sham. This guy, we were on his show, on Wayne's show on CPR, and this guy was giving us feedback like we had 3,000 listeners and 3,500 listeners from South Africa and all this, but it all ended up being a sham.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds like that Nigerian, hey, we got 6 million for you. You just got to send us 10,000.
Well, it was this guy that was playing himself off to be an ex-Army captain, a real gung-ho guy, And then Wayne got pictures of him, and he's like freaking 900 pounds eating Cheetos at a desk. And he challenged him on it and said, hey, get on Skype right now. Oh, no, man, I can't. No, get on Skype right now. And he wouldn't do it, and we were done with him. He was telling us that President Bush's son was listening to the show and all this stuff. It was too good to be true, basically, is what it was.
Yeah, that happens. That happens in this wild, wild west of the internet. But one thing's for sure, what you're doing at Cold War Radio is being heard, and you can tell by the audience, the size of the chat rooms increased just in the, I'm like a rookie around here, so from the time I've joined up, I've seen it increase immensely. And if all of us just keep sharing it, more people will come in here and they'll be like, this is what I've been looking for. Some truth, some facts, some history. Let's be real here. And you keep it real. So once again, thank you for letting me be a part of the Sunday part of the lineup. It's an honor.
I appreciate your work in Norway. I appreciate your work too. I mean, some of the work, ladies and gentlemen, that Norway does behind the scenes, if you could see just the plethora of just imagery, just doing the imagery for one program and also for the website. Norway is an artist when it comes to that, and I'm telling you, there's no less than 5 or 6 images for every episode that he's on, and the amount of research material that goes into those shows. Those Monday night shows could last for 6 hours, no problem. Norway.
Yeah, well, I have to concur with Jack here. It's a huge honor working with you, Hutch, because you are real. You're the real deal. I mean, you have a solid anchoring in reality, and you're knowledgeable, which is one of the traits I put at the very top, because we see so much dumbing down of the population in around us, and bringing knowledge, bringing truth to people is pivotal for our future generations, and working with you, Hutch, is a big honor and a privilege, and I'm so happy to be a part of the team and to pulling my share of the weight here.
Well, I truly appreciate that, and I can't take any more. I can't take any more of this praise, man. I'm a humble man. I'm a humble man here trying to get the word out, and I'll tell you, I'm humble just having the great audience in the chat room that we have here, because truth be told, at the beginning, and I'm talking about all the way back until about the election, maybe a little bit before the election, the audience, it wasn't minuscule, but there wasn't the amount of people listening that there are now. So I'm humbled by that, and that's one of the things that drives me continuing on, a certain trend or away from another trend. But one of the things that I like about this business and this technology is, for instance, Norway, you're so far away, but yet we've had this connection, and we've had it for months, and it's working out well, and it's almost, other than the fact that you have to stay up real late, other than that, it's almost effortless. And with that, let me bring in A Radio from Canada. I forget, Ontario is where he's from. Let's welcome him to the program. Good evening.
Good evening. Congratulations, Hutch. I'm very impressed.
Well, thank you very much.
And I would like to thank you, and you should take credit for me starting. I'm very grateful to you pointing me in the right direction.
And why don't you tell the audience about that? How's that going? And what actually, I know what you have going on, but why don't you explain it to the folks?
Well, I started off doing fairly long podcasts, and I decided that wasn't for me at the moment. So what I do is a morning moment, which is a snapshot of something that interests me of the day. It's probably 5 to 10 minutes long, something like that. And it just sparks people's interest. Some of it's American, some of it's Canadian, some of it's British, some of it's European. It can be anything, but it's mostly your favorite subject.
And that's got to be Islam.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm trying to just target things that people are just missing. I mean, there's one thing I just picked up recently, which is nothing to do with that, which I'm going to do soon, which is on China. Very interesting thing going on in China, on the Indian border with China. Very interesting what's going on there.
And how can the people check out your show?
We can find me on Spreaker at A Radio. And I'm on Twitter at A Radio Canada, and as you know, that's EHRADIIO. But the thing is, I didn't call in about me. I called in about you to thank you very much. I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me. I'm really grateful, and everybody should understand that you are the godfather of podcasting.
Nice, I like that. Hey, I'll tell you what, you ought to, don't forget to get in touch with Patreon. I sent you an invite. You want to really thank me? Go ahead and get a Patreon account started, and I'll get paid, brother.
Okay.
I mean, you might as well, right? I mean, if you're doing it every day, and that's over on Spreaker. They're short takes, and a lot of people really like that. It's tough to sit down and listen to an hour or 2 hours of radio sometimes, but I take your praise very humbly. And that goes to everybody, and especially when I look over at this chat room, and A Radio in the chat room gets emotional sometimes. I've seen them over there. They know it over there, but the thing's just moving down, and constant activity over there. It's the place to be. If you're listening to any of our programs, it goes with Wayne's show too. Well, hell, Wayne's got about 6 different platforms going at the same time. I wanted to have him on the program, but he's unavailable. Let me tell you about Wayne Dupree. Hey, thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
412-567-1460. Even though he's not on the program, I'm still going to give a talk about Wayne Dupree, because if it wasn't for Wayne Dupree, I would have never got hooked up with John Grant, who's at the 405, and I would have never started the live radio, I don't think, if I wouldn't have taken the leap over there. He allowed me to be his co-host. Like, I was on one show, and the next show he was commuting back and forth about an hour and a half to work, and he was having problems getting to his studio on time. So I had to co-host a couple shows for him, and that had me interacting with John Grant, and then I got the 405 to run Cold War Radio, thanks to, I would imagine, Wayne boosting me over there. But Wayne Dupree has opened so many doors for this program, and also for me personally. You heard Stacy talk about it. I've been all over the country, met all kinds of different people I would have never met without Wayne. He works, if you think I work hard, he works harder than I do. I mean, this is what he does. And he's got a huge following because of it, and he deserves it. And I'm honored to be on that program. But wish we could have talked to him tonight, but that didn't happen. but I'm still glad to have Norway and Jack on the line. What else is going on in your guys' minds tonight that could add to this program? And one more time, 412-567-1460. About 15 minutes left on the program. Time to have your voice heard on episode number 500 of Cold War Radio.
Yeah, well, Hutch, you were talking about the thrill of making live radio, and actually, I got a little anecdote from my days in the regional radio here, when and it was actually not live, but I was sent out. You know, we have this sort of a competition to get the New Year's baby. It's a big thing if you're born on New Year's Eve or the first baby in the new year. You know, so I was sent out to the local hospital to the maternity ward to see if there was any new babies coming there in the new year, and the nurse I spoke to, she said yes, I'll go and check, and you know, I came there with my radio equipment, and yeah, so she went checking, and yeah, well, there is a lady that's about due, you know, so you can, and she said it was okay, you could go in and talk to her. And so I went in there, and I was so nervous. She looked like she was going to pop any second. So I was don't say anything to set things off here, you know. So every sentence I ended with "oh, I see" in Norwegian. Akkurat. Oh, I see. I didn't register that, but when I got home in the evening, you know, there were like 100 messages on the answering machine, and people were really laughing because it was the craziest interview. You know, I was saying, "Oh, I see," you know, and every other word. So sometimes, you know, the situation can really set you off in some really funny directions.
Absolutely, and I really I'm glad you're sharing some of those stories. It's really interesting. Let's welcome Ken from Virginia to the program. Good evening, Ken.
Hey, Hutch, congratulations on 500 episodes, brother. And Norway, I just came back from a Baltic cruise. I would recommend it to anybody because every excursion we went on, you will learn more about World War I, World War II history than you will ever learn anywhere in a classroom. I mean, it was just amazing just to be over there. So, I mean, we hit up Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Finland, and even pulled into St. Petersburg for 3 days. And, yeah, everybody thinks it's so easy to get into Russia. Yeah, unless you were on an excursion with the ship or you had a Russian visa, you weren't going anywhere.
And I heard you had a little trouble with adjusting with the sunlight up there.
just a little bit. Yeah, it was. But after 10 days, yeah, I was kind of getting used to it, and then I had to come back. So,
I have a question for you.
Beautiful country over there.
I have a question for you, Ken. During your travels through the Baltics, I know you were there for enjoyment and all that. Did you ever get a chance to sense the pulse, the political pulse going on in those countries that you visited?
Not so much. I mean, we spent more time on the cruise ship interfacing with people. I mean, when we went out on an excursion, we were with a guide that was, you know, whatever country we were in, but there were a lot of Brits and a lot of Australians on this cruise with us, and we had some interesting conversation with them. So
I can't imagine.
Well, now, no offense, Hutch, but I'm going to call out the guy we were there with, Chris Plant, when he told one of the British gentlemen there that he ran into Prince Chuck I thought this guy was going to have a heart attack on the fantail.
Yeah, that'll do
it. So, yeah, if you get an opportunity to listen to Chris, he's rather entertaining. So, but yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there. And congratulations again. And you guys keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you, Ken, from Virginia. Thank you, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the things that keeps the show going, too, is you guys that call up, especially to the point where we have your name down and we know, you've called before, and we know who it is. And go ahead and turn your radio down. Turn your radio down there, caller, and this will work out a lot better. But 251, area code 251. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Michelle. Mr. Hutch, I just wanted to say thank you for educating us, and congratulations on number 500. From Alabama, we love you. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, and that means a lot. Michelle, please call back again.
Love you, sir. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome. All right. Much love tonight. 10 minutes left, guys. I'll tell you, it's been a long journey, and I guess now we reset the game clock and go for 1,000, one show at a time. Hopefully we'll be able to do that, and who knows what's going to happen in the meantime, in between time. You never know what we're going to have to report on. It's an exciting time, although it's not it's a little nerve-wracking when you see some of these things. But I think that our analysis is important. I think the analysis is all baked. And when it comes to the mainstream media, you see that all the vernacular and everything is the same, no matter what media outlet you're listening to. I try not to do that. I can't stand when I hear people saying, let's unpack this. I've heard that on every network that there is. We've got Breitbart is handicapped. They've got a 30-year-old kid that's running their show, Breitbart News Daily. The guy doesn't have a frame of reference of history, except things that his generation has been brainwashed in. You'd think he's crying half the time when he comes on the show at Breitbart. I totally disagree with that, having him on there. But 734, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Betsy from Michigan, and I just wanted to congratulate you, Hutch, for your 500th show, and I'm so glad that I found your program. So just wanted to thank you for all your hard work and all your cohorts, Norway and Jack and the great chat room. Thanks again. Thanks so much.
Well, Betsy, thank you so much, and we appreciate you calling and sharing the program with your friends, and don't let this be the last time you call.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all of your good wishes. And by the way, I'm not taking credit for this. This show was Norway's idea, a brilliant idea, as most of his are. Norway pushes me a little bit, and it turns out that everything we do together seems to work out pretty well.
Yeah, well, I just aired that little idea, and you totally took to it. So it was just a spur of the moment. But I mean, it's 500. It's you might say it's an arbitrary number, but I think it's healthy once in a while to stop and take stock. And I mean, when you look at the chat room, I mean, all these lovely people, Tonya, History B, Dano P. Cola, Ken Crater, thanks for the call, Ken, Tracy, you have Rocky, Paul, Peter Smith B, E-Radio, Fairweather, all these Cajun, Ken, I mean, great people, all of them, and they're really making this effort worth it. And I was doing a little math here a couple of hours ago, and I saw that you had only on Cold War Radio you racked up 105,000 plays and almost 24,000 downloads, and that is around 64.5 million hours of radio play. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, as you put it that way. And I got to say, to people like Dano And Robert Underwood, I don't think he's on there tonight. But these guys were around when we had 12 listeners. So they're along for the ride, too. This is their 500th episode, too. And there's not that many of them out there, but there's some of you, and God bless you, because if you wouldn't have been out there when it was 12, and then the next week it went to 13, and the next week it went to 15, and then it sunk back to 7, and then it went back. I mean, it was a struggle at first. It really was, but we didn't give up. A lot of other people did, like you heard John Grant say. And incidentally, podcasters, the average the average burnout date is 6 shows. If you do a 7th show, you have a shot. But most of the shows end at 6. And if you look out there in the podcast directories, you'll see that. You'll see shows that have been dormant since 2009 or every year because a lot of people get in it and they think that first of all, they think they're going to make money out of it. And I got to tell you, I think my first show, I started out doing Bird's Eye View, and I had an iTunes app that was $1.99. And they didn't pay out until it was $50, and then they paid out $25 to me, and they kept $25. And I think it took 2 years to make my first $25. And I can't remember if I got a second check from them or not before that show faded out. But just lately, the Patreon and the donations have been excellent. The gifts, Doc sent a medical bag, 3 medical bags, actually. That if I get around to it, I'm going to put some pictures on Facebook or on the website. And I'm going to send one to my son. So I think that's a lot of it. So there was many years that we were doing this, and we still are, really, for the love of it. But it's a lot of work, and a lot of people, they don't have time for it, and I understand that. I mean, it's totally understandable that you wouldn't have time to do something like this because it does take up so much time. And just a show note, if you will, in the background, you're listening to the Sons of Norway, and in Norwegian, that is pronounced
Sønner av Norge.
Courtesy of Radio Norway. It's been a great 2-hour show. I look forward, as I'm sure you do, to the president's rally in Phoenix, Arizona. I hope there hasn't been any violence. I haven't really watched the chat room that closely because it's moving too quickly. But Rocky, thanks to you. History B, Norway called him out earlier. Thanks to all of you for listening live. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here. Jack, I want to thank you and tell you what a great job you're doing on Steel City Resistance. And I know you don't have a real big social media platform, but they can find you on Gab, so you can tell them that.
That's right. I'm on gab.ai. Thank you for the opportunity to help you spread the message. And the reason why you have longevity is because you speak the truth. All of these other platforms that died off, they've been lying to whoever their listeners were, and they have nothing to go on. And if you stick with the truth, you stick with history, you have longevity. So thank you, and thank you to all the listeners in the Spreaker chat room. You guys are the bomb.
All right, thanks, Jack. Norway, how can people get in touch with you on social media, sir?
I'm totally in agreement with Jack here. You stick to the truth, and if people lie to the audience, it's going to bite them in the ass at some point. So I am at Norway for Trump on Twitter and Gab, and that is Norway for Trump with the number 4. Pleasure to co-host with you tonight, Hutch, and once again, a big congratulations with show number 500.
Well, thank you very much, and I couldn't do it without you guys, and my voice would go south. But I want to thank everybody that listened in the chat room as well, and everybody that participated, all my guests, and those of you that wanted to call the show tonight. I thank all of you. I thank my patrons, all of our donors, and people that have sent different items to the post office box. Thank you. We are looking forward to another 500 episodes and beyond. Who knows how far this can go as long as you guys share the show and keep tuning in. We will be back on Thursday with Stacy Rush for our regular scheduled program. And Wayne Dupree, I'm not sure if he's coming up next. Go check. I won't be on the program tonight, but I'll be back tomorrow night and going forward. Thanks for letting us into your life, ladies and gentlemen, for 1 hour. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Bird's Eye View on Twitter. God bless.
God bless.
What a crew, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say thank you to all my co-hosts. You heard them tonight. What a wonderful crew. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. Thanks for listening to an encore presentation of the 500th episode of Cold War Radio. Just for your reference, we are currently at episode 656. Think about it. We're closing in on 1,000. Happy Thanksgiving, ladies and gentlemen, and God bless. Sons of Norway.
Calling all podcasters, musicians, vloggers, and reporters, and everyone else who wants crystal clear recording that's super portable. The Shure Motive family of microphones makes